friends of ours that know both of us will like to find out that we're hanging out online,
Indeed.
especially our parents.
I know.
All
About
right.
to say, I was on this webinar yesterday, and I said hi to someone in the chat box, and then Christy Haga Turner was also on that webinar. I was like, hey.
Nice. All right, yeah, we're live now, so I'm gonna share it on my page.
Cool.
And tag you.
Sweet.
And we're up.
Woo, fancy.
So when I wrote the explanation of this live session, I called it a coronavirus in New Jersey, a church worker's perspective. With Slats Toole, preacher, writer, Starbucks worker, New Jersey resident, hymn aficionado, and pastor's friend from back in the day.
Fair. I think that's a good description.
Okay, good. So would you tell the folks who are watching this live or later a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Slats Toole. My pronouns are they, them. So this is Slats. They are currently in New Jersey, social distancing to protect themselves and their community from the coronavirus. And I work at a tiny, tiny church. We have about 10 people in worship each Sunday. So very, very tiny. In central New Jersey. Some people will tell you that central New Jersey doesn't exist, but it totally does. And then I also do a fair amount of writing and particularly around liturgy, hymnody, and presenting on LGBTQIA issues in the church, especially around worship, liturgy. I am the child of two church musicians who are probably watching this at some point. and so I grew up with this deep love of worship, and which has carried me into what I'm doing now. Before I was working in the church, I was working full-time in live theater, primarily as a director and sound designer, so not acting. But and I still do that, but not full-time freelance anymore, which is actually great because a lot of my friends who are doing that right now don't have jobs.
Yeah.
So
and also explains your high quality headphones and microphone.
that's yeah. No problem. I do this a few times.
So I thought of calling you because I put up a quick message that said I was praying for the church in New York and New Jersey and Connecticut and everything, which seems to be at least one of the American epicenters of this pandemic. So one question is, how are you holding up personally?
I'm better this week than I was last week. One of the great things about being in this area is a lot of the governors, like New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut governors are really working together because our states are so close together that if we're going to uphold any kind of social distancing executive orders, they really need to work together, or else people will just go to the other state and do whatever they want to do. And so in the past week, things have been kind of slowly shutting down on a national or on a state level, which has actually been a huge relief for me and for a lot of the people who I know. So we are at the point in New Jersey where anyone who is deemed non-essential is supposed to either be working from home or that organization is supposed to be shut down for the time being, which has given us some guidance on what to do as far as our worship service. They're discouraging and kind of actively enforcing bans on public gatherings. And while there hasn't been any conversation about what that means for churches, that gives us some guidance as we make our decisions. So I actually have to be a little bit less attuned to exactly what is happening in the news. Whereas last week I was trying to get a bigger picture so we could make decisions. And now that the state leadership has kind of stepped up and done that, it has taken a little bit of the pressure off of that. So I work at Starbucks and my store is now closed, but they are continuing to pay us. So not handling cash for 8 hours a day is a really great thing for my mental health right now.
Yeah, That's I hadn't even thought about that particular aspect of folks who are doing that kind of service work.
Yeah, any in most places where non-essential workers are not allowed to physically show up to work at this point. Fast food, Starbucks falls under fast food. Workers are deemed essential, generally speaking, because of providing food at often not at Starbucks, but often at a low cost for folks. So we often think of essential workers as being, medical workers, pharmacies, but it also includes actually a huge amount of the workforce.
Yeah, and I've been cognizant of that here in the difference between. I mean, well, our church has a relatively large staff for a church, and we've got a preschool, and we've got folks in all kinds of industry. We've got small business owners that run businesses in Manassas, where we are, and everybody. And I've been kind of unsure about what exactly to do, whether I patronize these places or I don't. Like, do I want to help the workers get paid, or do I want to preserve their lives and the lives of others by not showing up? And I know that you were kind of in the middle of some of that in your Starbucks work. What was that like for you?
Well, generally, what a lot of people have kind of asked me, like, what should I do? You're somebody who works in food service at times, and from what I've been seeing, restaurants here are now takeout or delivery only. We don't have any more seating. That's a state order at this point. But I've been encouraging people. Like, I've seen small businesses that are having to lay off people or even close their doors. The restaurant that did the catering for our wedding is a small restaurant in Princeton, and they had to lay off a lot of their, at least temporarily lay off a lot of their workers. And I know that was an awful thing for them. So I've been trying to encourage people, if you do go out, try to go to a smaller business rather than a large chain. Starbucks is going to get through this. Your local coffee shop might not, and to tip very well. Especially since we don't know how, for folks who don't know how much longer they're going to have a paycheck, anything we can do to help that out is vital right now.
Yeah. And you said you're getting paid, you're still getting paid, and that's good.
Yes.
To hear. I do think that that's a kind of like a generous, but also kind of the right thing to do as far as companies can. There's a story in our local paper today that one of the business of the real estate owners downtown, where a lot of these small businesses are, has deferred their rent for 6 months too. And I was happy to hear that. And that happens to be somebody who's connected to our church. So I was pretty proud of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know them well, but I don't know. It was just a relief to find somebody choosing a posture of generosity in the midst of things. It might be better if they just forgive rent for the time, but deferring is certainly a great first step.
Yeah.
So what's it like to be a leader in the church? You said you have a small congregation. What are some of the decisions that you've made as a pastor of a smaller congregation for the time being?
So the biggest decision that even before the executive orders came down is we made a decision starting on, I think it was the 15th, to suspend in-person worship. Even though we could theoretically have had, because we're a smaller church, we could have had worship where everyone was 6 feet away from each other. We also have a number of people who are in at-risk populations, and it came down to, we just don't want to take that risk. And so we have been doing I've been pre-recording something that's going on YouTube, which seems to be the best fit for our particular group of people, where they can log in and watch it. I was talking to someone the other day who said that at 10 a.m. on Sunday, she clicks the link on the YouTube and it feels like she's at church. And the other thing for us has been making a bigger effort to connect with each other via phone. Like we've restarted the old phone tree,
Yeah,
which is
absolutely.
technology I didn't think we'd be using anytime soon, but
Yeah.
to be able to help people feel connected with each other. The other tricky thing for us has been we're a tiny church, but we are deeply involved in our community. So we have an after school program that meets twice a week. We have a community meal that we host twice a month. Once a month we cook, and then once a month the Muslim school up the street cooks. And it's a tiny group of people that is enormously focused on serving the community around us. And so there's been we've had to think a lot about how do we do that safely right now?
Yeah.
Because we really need to minimize the number of volunteers to minimize the risk, because, I feel fine, but I don't know, I could be carrying the thing. So the fewer number of people, the better, which is a much different mode of operations than we normally do. And really trying to suss out what the needs are. So right now we are kind of keeping in touch with folks who are connected with the school system to make sure that good food is getting to the kids who are on free or reduced lunch programs. And if that ever seems to falter, we've kind of got a plan to step in, and here's how we can distribute some meals. And so it's been, I think, really tricky for some of the folks in the congregation who are helpers and really want to help out and feel like we don't know how to help out now, and trying to figure out that new reality of what it means to live into our call to be the body of Christ in the community around us.
Yeah, I think that's one of the more bizarre things about this, is that for most crises, church people are ready, like based on what they know that the saints through the ages have done. They're ready to jump into action, but it's like inaction is the action that's most important right now.
Yeah.
And so people don't know what to do, and it's kind of crazy making for a lot of Christians. But I'm proud of how most churches have tried to counsel people to say like, let's put our energy into contingency planning and to making sure we're aware of what resources are available and helping our people find out about that and stuff like that. Have you noticed anything in particular from communicating with your church people, like from last week to this week? How are they holding up? Are you noticing anything changing? I
think they're holding up well so far. At least they say they are, and I think they're being accurate there. I think that up here it's really hit that we are in it for the long haul. So the first couple of weeks of what is this, what's going on, how long is this going to last, and now we're kind of settling into, we're going to see that our test numbers our positive test numbers are going dramatically up. This is partially just because we have more access to testing. FEMA set up, I think, is starting on the 4th testing center that is entirely run by FEMA up here. So they keep saying, our numbers are going up, and we're expecting that because we're able to do more tests. So they probably were like this for a while. We just know now. And so as we're seeing that happen, I think people are starting actually to get into new routines of, okay, if we're going to be hunkered down for a while, how do we get through this, and what are the things we can do? Like, I've got a couple in the congregation who they get in their car and they drive out to a park, and they park in the parking lot, and they like sit and look at the pond and eat their lunch. And that has become their new tradition. And so as we're starting to get into the rhythms of what this means, as opposed to everything just constantly changing, I think people have been getting a little bit steadier. I anticipate that as we keep going, we're going to have a spot where, okay, we're doing well. And then we're going to kind of plummet because of that lack of interaction with folks is going to start to hit us probably in the next week or so.
Yeah. In my conversations, there've just been more staff and church members who are calling one another are talking about people wanting to stay on the phone longer, which is understandable. And then I've just had more people confess to having started to cry every once in a while now.
Yeah.
So I think those are a couple of measures of how it's kind of getting realer.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I've appreciated about your ministry in writing and Christian witness is how you've kind of let the rest of us in on your conversations with God
Mm-hmm.
in a few different ways. So I wondered what your conversations with God are like these days. What's your theology feel like or look like? What's that been like for you?
I mean, the nice thing is that throughout my life, I've been rather pessimistic about many things,
Yeah.
which
Low
is,
expectations.
yeah, which actually is serving me pretty well right now. Touch my face. I will say that I have a as you know, certainly, and most people who see my writing know, I have a really strong theology of lament.
Yeah.
I am struggling right now because a lot of the lectionary texts for Lent are stories of healing. So right now I'm working on the sermon for a story of Lazarus's resurrection, and I am struggling with how to preach those in an honest way right now, and most of the time, where I'm landing is not even focusing on the miraculous thing, but focusing on something else. Like I'm focusing this week on Jesus weeping.
Yeah.
And one of the bedrocks of my theology is that no matter what we feel, we can bring that feeling to God. If there is nothing that I have felt that is not somewhere in the Psalms.
Yeah.
And that kind of connects me to this larger tradition and makes me feel less isolated and alone. That someone else has prayed the kinds of feelings that are on my heart right now. And God has been there for that.
Yeah.
So right now, my conversation with God has been primarily about how to move on the hearts of people who don't think this is a big deal. Because I truly believe that God is weeping about the devastation that is happening right now, and that there's a human impact. There's things that we do that cause that devastation to be worse by not paying attention to the guidelines that we have been given, and the things that we know, or people who believe that God is just going to fix all of this, and we can ignore the science, which I feel like God gave us science. And so that's been where I am right now. I think the thing that I kind of see looming are the deaths that we are going to be encountering from this, and particularly if once those deaths start coming when it's still not safe to gather together, and that is going to be really hard. So I kind of see that on the horizon right now, and trying to go ahead and start thinking about what that's going to look like, and how we prepare ourselves, how we prepare our congregations, how we come together as a community when that happens, because it's going to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm aware of that too. I heard one church leader wrote that said, like, next week someone is going to have it, and a week after that someone is going to die from it.
Yeah.
Which is like really stark, but he was trying to prepare the church for the ministry ahead, I think.
Yeah.
And as you talk, the questions I have for God that materialize as I'm listening to you. One is like, what the hell are you doing right now? And then like, what the hell are you going to do about this? Like,
yeah.
Like, where are you now? And then what are you going to do with this? Because and I don't know that I'll get those answers, but I guess those are the questions that come to mind.
Yeah. I said in the sermon, in my sermon last week, which is the healing of the blind man in John. And I literally at the beginning of the sermon said, I'm having trouble with this text right now. I'm having trouble about why some people are healed and some people aren't. And I don't know why. I wish I had the answer as to why, but I just don't.
Yeah.
And I think that honesty has been appreciated.
Yeah, I think so too. And for me, like not having the answers just drives me back to God, though. Like just gives me that posture of kind of dependence, which is a place that I'm comfortable with, because I feel that way a lot.
Yeah.
I know that you're a big time artist when it comes to the written word and the sung word. And I saw that you had shared you still had via Zoom a meeting of the Hymn Society.
Yes.
I see that correctly?
Yes. We had like a check-in meeting, make sure see how everyone's doing, support each other type thing.
So what's the Hymn Society?
So the Hymn Society in the United States and Canada is an organization that works for the promotion of and future of congregational song. And we have a really good mission statement that I don't have fully memorized, but that talks about what we believe that the holy act of singing together does, which includes that it shapes faith, that it heals brokenness, and then I think it's maybe restores peace. That there's something really powerful and transformational about it. So we have conferences. There are like hymn writing retreats that I'm supposed to go to one in Richmond. I don't know if it's going to happen, but as well as we launched the Center for Congregational Song, which seeks to equip congregations in congregational song in all of its forms, all different genres. And it's a really awesome place to see a lot of different folks coming together. It's an ecumenical, so it's not confined to a single denomination.
So what
basically,
is the church?
We're a bunch of nerds.
Yeah. my brand of nerd.
Yeah.
What? So first off, did you guys try to sing together via Zoom?
We did.
You did? How did it go? Because I imagine there's still some lag.
Yes. So we tried a few different things actually. We did a call and response song to open us up. We sang "It Is Well With My Soul," where we kind of sang together the first verse, and then somebody was playing piano and somebody else read the next two verses over, and then we sang the fourth verse again together. And then we did a cyclical song, like a brief refrain that we sang together, and we were invited to unmute our Zoom mics to like offer prayer requests over the song that time. It's tricky, particularly if you're trying to hear each other, because there is a lag with Zoom. And so I think the best I've seen it done is really having one person leading and everyone else singing with the mute button on, which still doesn't get that togetherness. I'm going to an online song circle tomorrow night, and I'm going to see how they do it, because it's
you might have to tell us, because I mean,
yeah,
it's tough to be a singing people in separate buildings.
Yeah.
And I know we've gotten to the point where we're looking forward to what we will be reunited to get to do later eventually. And singing together is I'm gonna lose it because I already miss it, and it will have been a long time. So let us know what you find out, if we can figure out.
I will.
To do it.
I do know that that there is a way, and I haven't played around with this, but I found a video about it that I could send to you that that uses the original sound from your computer with Zoom, and it doesn't try to filter something out. Because often it's really, really hard for particularly like piano, which has such a wide range, to come through on Zoom, because it kind of naturally compresses things. Right. So that's been helpful, but we still have not found a replacement for fully singing together.
Yeah. So. I'm glad to hear that folks who are streaming our services are singing in their homes.
Good.
I don't know that if I would be comfortable doing that or not, but I'm glad to hear people actually are. So to finish it up, since you're a theologian and a writer and a hymn nerd, is there a hymn that is on your mind, on your lips, on your heart that you could point us to?
Yeah. I have two actually. One is a little bit more familiar, but I always bring it up because I think the story behind it is really powerful, which is, as Hymn Society, we sang together, "It Is Well With My Soul," which is a heart song for a lot of people. Right now, we're really focusing on, this is a great time to sing the songs that bring you comfort, that you know by heart.
Yeah.
Those are the easiest to sing together. And those, like, this is the time we deeply, deeply need those songs. And what I always say about "It Is Well With My Soul" is it is a song of hope that was written out of tragedy, where the text writer lost his son, and then there was a fire and he lost essentially all of his assets, and then there was a shipwreck and he lost his daughters. And it was out of that despair that he writes the song "It Is Well With My Soul," which I appreciate as a testament of faith in a time of struggle.
Yeah.
And the other one is less known. I don't think it's in any of the Methodist hymnals, or at least it wasn't when I had to write something for History of Hymns a couple of years ago, because I couldn't pick it. But the hymn "Sometimes a Light Surprises," which is by text writer William Cooper. It's usually sung to the tune "Sally Gardens," so it's often a pretty familiar tune for folks. And it's based in the text of Habakkuk, which you don't hear a lot of hymns based on Habakkuk. But similarly, Cooper was deeply depressed for most of his life. He was like best friends with Newton, who wrote "Amazing Grace." And Newton was the very charismatic, outgoing, positive, and Cooper was like in and out of facilities for depression, multiple attempts on his own life throughout his life. And so he writes these hymns that are hymns of hope, but are rooted in this "I've seen how bad it gets," which to me feels so much more real and resonates so much more with my experience than, happy, clappy, joy, joy hymns. My favorite, I'll say right now the first and the last verse. So the first verse is, "Sometimes a light surprises the child of God who sings. It is the Lord who rises with healing in his wings. When comforts are declining, he grants the soul again a season of clear shining to cheer it after rain." So this idea of light surprising us in the midst of things that are so terrible. And then the last verse, which is the Habakkuk, is, "Though vine nor fig tree neither their longed for fruit should bear, though all the fields should wither, nor flocks nor herds be there, yet God the same abiding, God's praise shall tune my voice, for while in him confiding, I cannot but rejoice." So even though the trees bear no fruit, even though the fields are bare, yet God still abides, and it is in God that we rejoice. So that's my prayer right now.
Amen. I thank you for sharing that with us and sharing your time with us. Your faith and friendship have been a witness to me, because your faith has been hard won. And it's a testament to exactly the kind of theology that you offered us. And I think that's part of why hymns like that and faith like that and stories like that are helpful at this time, because if it's faith in the time of despair that proves the truth of the gospel.
Mhm.
If it's not good news now, it's not worth anything.
Yeah. Well
Uh,
said.
and so thank you for sharing some of your experience. Our prayers continue with you, with your congregation,
Same.
with the people so close to the epicenter of things up there. And maybe we'll do it again, and maybe next time I'll convince you to play your saw on air.
I need to do a better kind of recording for the saw though, because it's not going to pick up well through Zoom.
I knew you would just be disappointed in the sound quality, and that's why you wouldn't do it. All right. Well, I'm going to get off, but again, thank you, and we'll keep in
Yeah, thanks
touch.
for having me.
Okay, God bless you.
Good to see you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.